A man in his 20s banged the table hard because of the employee who caused a big loss to him by just sleeping in the meeting. His veins popping out of his hands, he sent a glare to the employee. The employee stood there with trembling knees. He knows if his boss once gets angry, then it would be very difficult to get him in his normal stage. Why were you sleeping, huh? Jungkook growled, making the man jump on his place. Sorry, sir, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't do it intentionally. The employee bowed and apologized sincerely. Jungkook just pulled his hairs and said, "Get out of here before I can fire you." The man bowed and went out of his office. Jungkook, 26 years old, the CEO of the company Jones Enterprises and the Mafia king. The power he holds isn't a joke. He can take anyone's life if he wants to. Everything he wants, he gets. His parents are not more, and he's a child who is spoiled by himself. Suddenly, his secretary, Kim Taeyong, comes in. "Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Kang is here to meet you." Jungkook halted when he heard his name. "The killer of his father," he smirked. "Let him come in." Taeyong nodded and bowed before going out. Soon enough, the door opened, welcoming Mr. Kang. "Good afternoon, my enemy." Mr. Kang growled while a smirk appeared on his lips. Jungkook, who was quietly doing his work, got disturbed by his bad vocals. "Good afternoon to Mr. Kang." Jungkook finally answered, his eyes turning red because of anger. If he wanted, he would have do anything with him here, but he didn't and controlled himself and waited for the right time. He wants to give him the intense pain he gave him 20 years ago, and he wants to feel the same pleasure Mr. Kang was going through. "Mr. Joon, someone is here with me today to meet you," Mr. Kang announced. Jungkook raised his one brow. "Come in, sweetheart," Mr. Kang shouted, and the door unlocked as a petite frame walked in. Jungkook stared at her for a moment. "She's so pretty." "She isn't real." "Her innocence can be seen by looking in her eyes." "I have a deal for you, Mr. Joon." Jungkook shifted his blue orbs on him. "Marry her and give me money, or else I will fly away where you can't even reach me." Mr. Kang knew Jungkook doesn't want to leave him, but he is so smart, he wants to enjoy his life till he dies. Jungkook smirked and looked at Ryan. "You're too innocent for this man here." "Little girl," he said, referring the man himself. "What's your name, little girl?" Jungkook asked out of a sudden, and the girl answered after looking at Mr. Kang for some time. Mr. Kang nodded and she answered, "Ryan." "You don't have to ask for his permission if you are going to be in my hand." From now on, Mr. Kang looked at Jungkook. "Are you going to marry her?" Jungkook nodded and Mr. Kang said, "Okay then, we will go today. Come to take her whenever you want." Mr. Kang and Vine went out of his office. Jungkook stared at Vine's disappearing bag. He smiled and continued to do his work. Now this girl has been attracted by him and he wants her. What he wants, he gets it. Author's point of view. After 2 weeks, "Leave me," Daniel, one of the Jungkook's men, growled when the sharp knife put through his arms. "How can I, when you have betrayed your own boss?" Jungkook ruthlessly said. Jungkook never liked someone who betrayed him. Never in his life. If someone betrays him, he simply plays with their lives. He completely looks like a psycho if not wrong. "Tell me, what is the reason you betrayed me?" Jungkook's voice came out deep and filled with anger. "Man gave me more money than you did." The man stuttered, fearing his devilish boss. Jungkook stood up from there and said to his guards, "Kill him." He went out simply after that. The man shouted and Jungkook smirked, hearing him shout in pain. Jungkook was in front of his washroom's mirror, cleaning his hands and also his muscular abs. Suddenly, the little girl came to his mind, and his lips make a curve, which meant he was smiling. That little girl made this devil smile. He misses her little figure, her small face, her brown eyes, her pink lips, her everything. He wore his clothes and told his driver to take out his car. He sat on the driver's seat and started driving to his little girl's house. Jungkook got out of the car and stared at the mansion in front of him. And he walked inside with a minimum of 50 cars behind him. Jungkook told them to stop and he walked inside the mansion. "Good evening, everyone," Jungkook shouted when he got inside the mansion. Mr. Kang turned around to see him standing there. Mr. Kang smirked. "Good evening, Mr. John. Honey, come out with wine," Mr. Kang told his wife. His wife nodded and made her way to Wine's room. A small figure was attached to the bed and was sleeping, but it got disturbed when a sudden voice came, "Wake up and wear this before coming down." Mrs. Kang threw a piece of cloth on Wine and went out. Mrs. Kang was Wine's stepmother, who never loved her, just her own daughter, Ria. "Okay." Her soft voice came out and she wore that dress. She went out of the room with her soft steps. She saw Jungkook and Mr. Kang talking. When she saw Jungkook, her steps halted and she froze there. Jungkook noticed her presence and shifted his blue orbs on him. He stared at her and felt like he was seeing his life. He came closer to her and said, "Come, little girl, let's go to my mansion." He sat and grabbed her wrist. "No, I don't wanna go," Vine said with teary eyes while Jungkook looked at her. I don't wanna go with you. I wanna stay here," Vine said in her soft voice, making Jungkook angry. She's being stubborn. He hates stubborn people. He doesn't wanna be harsh on her, that's the reason he was being soft with her. But now she was adding fuel to his inside demon. She's making him go harsh on herself. She's making him go wild on her. It will be very hard for her if she doesn't listen to him. "Little girl, don't make me angry with your nonsense. If I get angry, then it will be very hard for you to handle my dark side." Jungkook whispered huskily in her ear. Author's point of view. A guard opened the door for Wine as the car stopped in front of Jungkook's mansion. After a very long time, Wine agreed to come here as her stepmother told her to come here, and she couldn't deny her as she will hit her if she denied. "Welcome, my little girl," Jungkook uttered, making Wine look at him. I'm not a little girl," Wine declared his title for her. "Yes, you are," Wine pouted softly. "How old are you?" he asked, making Wine fix her gaze on him. 19, Jungkook nodded. "Okay, my darling." Wine pouted once more and he walked ahead. "Come fast," he shouted, and Wine ran to him to catch his face. They both reached Jungkook's room. "Big man, isn't this room a little dark?" Jungkook stared at Wine in disbelief. "Call me Jungkook." Wine nodded. "Okay, Jungkook-ji." Jungkook nodded. "Take a shower and come down for dinner." Wine nodded and went inside the washroom to fresh up. Soon she was done and wore the dress given by the maid. She came out and went downstairs for dinner. "Come." Jungkook signed his fingers, telling her to come. Wine came and sat beside him on the chair. "Eat whatever you like." Jungkook sat and Wine looked at the food in front of her, her eyes popping out while staring at the food. This much food she will complete in minimum 1 month. After almost 20 minutes, Vine was done eating and she went inside the room. Jungkook followed her and she asked, "You will also sleep here?" Jungkook scoffed, "Of course, this is my room. Can't I get another room?" Jungkook stared at her. "You are mine from now and you will be sleeping with me from now." He addressed, making Vine shut her mouth up. "Okay," Jungkook nodded and went inside the blanket. Vine also went inside the dirt after some time, on the other side of the bed. After some time, Jungkook hugged Vine from her waist while Vine didn't react, means she was asleep. "Good night, my little girl," and kissed her neck. He suddenly heard a voice. "Sir?" Taeyong asked, making Jungkook open his eyes. "It was a dream." "Yeah, I'm fine," Jungkook shouted. "Are you sure?" Jungkook nodded and maintained his cold posture. He signed Taeyong to go out of his office. Taeyong bowed and went out, while Jungkook leaned his head on the chair and yelped, "I can't wait to meet you, my little girl." He smirked. "Soon you will be underneath me," giving the intense. A call disturbed his words. It was from the head maid, Miss Bay. "Hello," Jungkook asked. "Good afternoon, sir." "Sir, ma'am is refusing to eat anything." Jungkook sighed. "Give the phone to her." The maid gave the phone to Vine. "Jungkook she." Her honey voice gave pleasure to Jungkook. He closed his eyes and asked in a dark tone, "Why were you not eating, sweetheart?" She remained silent. The silence of her is driving him crazy. He wants her to say something. "Say something, my love." His title for her is giving her butterflies. She stuttered. He smiled like a hopeless lover. "Yes, I don't feel like eating." Her voice came out like a whisper. He smiled and asked, "Do you want me to take you out, Vine's eyes gleamed with joy. "Yes." She excitedly sat and smiled. "Then eat something and I will take you out, okay?" Vine thought for a minute and said, "Okay." Jungkook home and the maid took the phone from Vine. "Take care of her and keep your eyes on whatever she is doing," Jungkook said in his dark voice. "Okay, sir," the maid said, and Jungkook got the call. He smiled and shook his head. "This little girl is driving me crazy," and continued to do his work. "I'm back home," Jungkook yelped when he came back from work to home. Vine came running down, and when she saw him, her eyes gleamed in joy. Jungkook shifted his dark orbs on her, and his lips turned upwards. "Welcome." Vine welcomed him. "How are you, my little girl?" Vine looked at him innocently, and he understood that his little girl wants to say something. "What is it, huh?" Jungkook asked, and Vine didn't understand his words. "What is the thing you wanna say, little girl?" Vine's lips formed a thin line as she says her words. "When will you take me out?" Jungkook's smile widened. His little girl wants to go out with him. Ah, this poor girl. But he wants to tease her. Jungkook stopped smiling and turned towards the stairs to go upstairs. Before saying, "I will think about it." Vine's hope went in vain. He broke her every hope of freedom, every hope of this little girl, who only wants love and freedom in her life. "He's so mean," Vine thought. "But you said you will take me." Jungkook showed his palm to her, meaning to end her sentence then and there. "Didn't I say I will think about it?" Vine kept her gaze on the marble floor as her eyes filled with tears. "Okay," her voice came out broken and stuttered. Jungkook noticed it and widened his eyes. He didn't mean to scare her. "No way," he said that playfully, not seriously. "This girl is too innocent to understand this." Hey, don't cry. I don't say that seriously, it was a joke." Vine's tears fell as she suddenly hugged him. "Don't do this. I want to go out, please." Jungkook felt bad for her. She's too pure to understand this. John thinks something. We will go out tomorrow, don't worry. Vine gazed up at him. He nodded, telling that it's true, and somehow she believed it. Vine nodded and Jungkook wiped her tears. He hesitated at first, as it was the first time he was this close to someone. He felt something different, something he never felt. When her pink cheeks came in contact with his big palms, it gave him some type of electric shock. He stared at her heavenly features, her lips, her cheeks, and her pink nose, which was pink after crying. She looked so beautiful, he just wanted to stare at her face for his whole life and nothing else. Go to sleep and I will come afterwards, Vine nodded and broke the hug. Jungkook felt cold when her petite body moved away from his big one. He stared at her back and smiled. This girl is something different. She wasn't some one night stand thing for him. He desired to have her for his whole life. Vine already ate dinner, so now only Jungkook is eating while she is sleeping in the room. He doesn't want to disturb her sleep, that's why he's being silent. He calls Taeyong and he answers it. Hello Hyung, Jungkook said. Yes, he calls Taeyong Hyung in private because he's elder than him and he's his good friend from a very long time. Good evening Jungkook. Can you arrange a place for my wife to explore? Okay Jungkook, I will do it. Thank you. No problem. Jungkook hung up the call and started eating the food. He was done eating and now he went inside the room to see Vine curled up in a ball. He turned off the light and adjusted the blanket on her as he kissed her forehead and wished her good night and himself went to sleep. He hugged her waist and slept, his favorite place to sleep. Please remove your hand, Vine stuttered as she told sleeping Jungkook to remove his hand from her waist. His hand was heavy for that little girl. Jungkook opened his eyes and asked, What happened? Vine looked at her and pointed at his arm. Remove it please, it's heavy. Jungkook immediately took his hand back and Vine took a long breath. Good morning, sweet cake. Vine looked at him. How many nicknames will he give me? Good morning. Jungkook got off the bed and said, Be ready, today I'm going to take you out. Vine's innocent eyes widened and excitement filled. Her insides jumped and she smiled. Thank you. Jungkook's heart melted watching her smile for the first time. He also smiled a little, which was hardly visible on his face. Don't thank me, little girl. It's just a gift for you. Vine nodded and ran inside the washroom to freshen up. Come down for breakfast, Vine. Jungkook yelled from downstairs and Vine didn't take a second to come down. Coming, Vine shouted as she reached downstairs. Jungkook was shocked to see her in a pink-colored frock in which she was looking absolutely gorgeous. But what caught his eyes was her milky legs were visible. He didn't want any other man to look at her the way he does. She's only his. Only he can see her like this, not anyone else. Jungkook's eyes turned dark, changed his dress right now. Vine looked at him. Why? Her voice came out broken and scared. Jungkook stood up from the chair and sighed. Something from his fingers. All the maids and guards went out leaving Jungkook and Vine alone in his big mansion. Little girl, try to understand that this body of yours belongs to me and no other man can look at you the way I look. But this dress looks so pretty on me, Vine said while looking down on her feet. Jungkook picked Vine up in bridal style as if she weighs nothing. Put me down, I'm heavy. Jungkook scoffed and smirked. You weighed nothing according to me. Vine didn't even try to say anything and just kept quiet. While Jungkook reached their shared bedroom and put her down on her feet, she stumbled a little but he held her back. Go and change the dress of yours. Vine pouted and he smirked, looking at her pout and groaned, while leaning his head back. Don't pout like this, my love. Why? She pouted once more. He darkened his eyes on her and said in a deep and soothing voice, "You look so delicate when you pout, my love, that I want the life out of you." Vine didn't understand his talks and tilted her head like a cute little kitten. He smiled, looking at her, and closed his eyes before opening them. "Little girl, go and change your dress, or else you won't be going out." Vine's eyes widened as he turned around to walk out. "No, I will change. Please take me out." Jungkook smiled at her innocence and turned around, maintaining his cold face. She walked inside the washroom to change her dress, while Jungkook smiled at her cuteness. "This little girl has done something to him. Are you ready to go?" Jungkook asked Vine, who was trying to plug the seatbelt, wearing a black shirt and jeans. Jungkook sighed and plugged her seatbelt. Vine made an O face and nodded her head. "Yes, I'm ready." Jungkook nodded and he started the car with a maximum of 10-20 cars behind him, which contains his cars for the safety. It was a long drive and Vine fell asleep in the car. Jungkook made her seat go back so she would sleep comfortably. Soon they arrived at their destination and Vine woke up, rubbing her eyes. "Where am I?" she said in a low voice. "You are in front of the world's biggest garden, which your soon-to-be husband owns." Vine's mouth gaped, hearing his words. "Really? This is all yours?" Jungkook nodded. "Yes, my little girl." Vine excitedly jumped out of the car and ran inside the garden. It had a colorful of flowers inside the green grass, in which Vine lay down and enjoyed. They both enjoyed it as much as they wanted. Jungkook was overjoyed by watching her smile every time. His little girl's smile was back, and now he would never let the smile go away from her pretty face. "Do you join Jungkook? Take Gang Vine as your lolly wedded wife?" the priest asked as Jungkook kept staring at his little girl, whose face was under the veil, but he knew this girl was having a pout face. "I do," Jungkook said without bothering to look at the priest and continued to gaze at his girl. "Do you Kang Vine take Jungkook as your lolly wedded husband?" Vine didn't know what to say, and Jungkook sensed it. He leaned towards her ear and whispered, "Repeat what I said just now, little girl." Vine nodded and said, "I do." Vine said, and the priest said, "In the sight of God and these witnesses, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss." Jungkook opened Vine's veil and saw his delicate wife, with sweat covered on her face, but she wiped it off with the back of her hand. Jungkook stepped a little closer to her and grabbed her chin with his index finger. "Do you trust your Jungkook-shi?" Vine nodded and Jungkook exhaled shakily. She trusts him, this beast. Jungkook leaned closer to her face and smiled at her before touching his lips with her delicate ones. The cheers went loud, but nothing was audible to Jungkook, only his heartbeat and Vine's. He held himself back from doing something to her hair, so he pulled back and wiped the corner of his lips from his knuckles. "How do you feel, little girl?" Vine looked at him before looking down and pouting. He knows why his wife is pouting today. He has to make up for her. Vine doesn't like to be socialized, but here she is between thousands of people and hundreds of cars. "Jungkook-shi, please take me home," Vine told Jungkook as she felt suffocated here. It was humiliating. Jungkook noticed her state and smirked. "Can't wait to go home, huh?" That poor girl is bringing herself in trouble, asking him to go home. Jungkook nodded and ordered his men to take the car out from them. Soon they both reached the mansion and Vine got out of the car and ran inside the room. "I want to change." Jungkook nodded and went out of the room, letting her change, and outside, thinking about how to ruin her tonight. Vine got out of the washroom, fixing the small length dress which was in the washroom. Vine called Jungkook many times to give her clothes, but he didn't hear her. She saw Jungkook's muscular back as he was shirtless, turned around, talking on his mobile, with his veiny tattooed arm visible. Vine gazed at his muscular arms with her innocent eyes. His arms are so muscular The only thought came to the poor girl's mind. Jungkook turned around and said something to the person on the call in Russian and hung up the call. Jungkook, when he heard her and his monster turned painfully hard, he groaned, looking at his wife who was wearing the outfit he intentionally put inside the washroom. He put that dress in the washroom so that she would wear it, and yes, she wore it. How innocent. He smirked and sat down on the couch while playing with a glass and stared at her like he would eat her out. He stood inches close to her, telling that she is nothing according to his height, her face till his chest, and he stared down at her. He put his arm on the wall behind her and caged her in his arms. Put his arm on the wall behind her and caged her in his arms. She looked down and he came closer to her face before saying, "When you are married to the man who owns the surname John, then why would I add another surname in your name? Little wife of mine, what's mine is yours and what's yours is always mine." In fact, he stopped and took her face in his index finger like he did in the wedding and stared at her black orbs. "You are mine." Vian's breath hitched, but she didn't even dare to say something. Jungkook picked her up as if she weighed nothing. He put her figure delicately on the bed and hovered over her. "I want you so bad, but first I want you to get comfortable around me." He smiled and kissed her forehead before making her sleep. The next morning, Jungkook, "I made the breakfast for you." Wine flutters her eyelashes as she spoke the sentence while stuttering. His eyes roamed on her face, but his blue orbs showed a different type of anger in it. He grabbed her arm and made her sit on his lap. She gasped as a sudden contact of skin made her feel a little uncomfortable, but she was with her delicate husband. His eyes roamed around her neck, which he wanted to mark with his marks. "Listen, little one, you are not a maid here, so you will not do any work of his house, understood?" The corner of her eyes moistened, hearing his arrogant and serious vocal. She looked at her feet and played with her little fingers. She nodded, and Jungkook took a spoonful of the porridge she made for him, and he tasted it. A hope in her heart rises that he will like the food. Jungkook simply chewed on the food and didn't even bother to say anything. "How is it?" Jungkook shifted his blue orbs on her side, and unintentionally, his blue eyes collided with her brown one. Vian unknowingly clenched her fingers on the hem of his silk shirt, thinking that it's a cloth of a chair on which Jungkook was sitting with Vian on his lap. He stared at her for a moment and smiled. Vian's breath hitched for a moment, till he says, "How can I not like that thing made by my wife?" Vian immediately hugged his neck and whispered, "Thank you." Jungkook was stunned by her naive actions but hugged her back and patted her lower back. Vian got off his lap and was about to go upstairs to their bedroom until he asked in his serious vocal, "Did I ask you to move from your place?" Vian stumbled at her place and stopped. She hesitantly turned around and saw her husband with folded arms above his chest. He raised his one eyebrow and pierced his gaze on her little figure. She looked down. "Come fast and eat your breakfast." Vian nodded and came beside Jungkook to sit down. "Not here, little one." Vian shifted her innocent gaze on him and he smirked while pointing at his lap. "Here, little one." Vian flutters her lashes and wobbles her head on his statement. "How obedient my wife is, hmm?" Vian looked down as she didn't have the courage to talk to him anymore. She sat down on his lap, but accidentally she sat on his monster and he moaned. "Princess," his princess looked at him and thought he was in pain. "Jungkook, are you in pain?" Jungkook nodded. "How can I help you?" "Only you can help my little one."